All right, what's happening, roadies? Welcome to episode 100. I can't believe we've made it this far. Incredible stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for watching and listening and supporting over the last couple years to get us to this point, episode 100. As you know, I'm going to be taking a little break after this week to kind of rejigger and reconfigure the show and figure out some good additions that we're going to do coming back for you on Labor Day. So episode 100, we've got Queens-based gentleman, Mr. Steve Remote of AURASONIC Limited, the mobile audio master. We're going to hop inside his truck in just a few moments here for the interview. But first, I've got some folks that I got to thank for getting us this far and a couple other things to let you know about. So first up, this show would not be possible without my good friend Paloma Criollo. I've mentioned her before. You guys have seen her in some footage before, and wouldn't be possible without her. So Paloma, if you're watching and listening, which I hope you are out in LA, thank you so much for everything that you've done and sticking by my side. Charlie Creasa, my man, wouldn't be here without you as well. Aaron Harper, Adam Ben, John Romeo, thank you for stepping in, doing me the solids of filming some of these episodes. It really means a lot. You know I wouldn't be here without you guys as well. To all the folks that have sponsored us over the last couple of years, Telefunken Electroacoustic, Airturn, Gig Gear, ShowPro Beard Co., Soundgirls.org, Load-In International Magazine, and Roswell Pro Audio. You guys are the best. I love you. I love your products. And thank you so much. And by the way, folks, all of the links below, I will leave the coupon code to each of those sponsors so you can hop over there, check out their gear, their stuff, use those Roadie Free Radio links and coupons to get yourself 15-20% off some items when you check out. All right, so all that stuff's below in the description. And I also have to thank our incredible and hardworking guests who have been on the show, all 100 of you folks. I can't believe it, man. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your inspiring tales of how you forged a career in the music and film business. And of course, to all of you guys for watching and listening over the last couple years. It's been an amazing ride. Your enthusiasm and support and dedication and loyalty and tremendous feedback has helped grow this show and this community in a really special and incredible way. And I wouldn't keep doing it without you, which is why I'm taking a little pause to just make it a little bit better, make it that much better. So in the meantime, you guys can keep a lookout. I'm going to be doing some videos here on YouTube. I'm going to be putting out a couple of interviews probably this summer, maybe a couple of host updates, things like that. And I will be doing some video content on the All Guitar Network. If you're just tuning in, you don't know what that is. The All Guitar Network is the brainchild of Mr. Joe Bonamassa and Norman Harris of Norman's Rare Guitars out in Los Angeles. It's basically like the golf channel for music and guitar heads. allguitarnetwork.com. Head over and check that out. You can sign up now before they start the subscription basis, and you'll have to pay for it. But if you pay for it, then we all get paid. You know what I'm saying? So check that out, allguitarnetwork.com. I will be doing some videos. We already have some content up there. We're going to be putting up some more stuff, including this episode right here. So thank you guys for tuning in. Here we go. Let's get on down to it. Mr. Steve Remote, caught up with Steve in Queens, like I said. So he's built several trucks over the years, and we're going to jump into his story and just how he rolled the dice at 18 years of age and decided to start his own company. This was a dream and a passion of his to create these incredible mobile audio recording trucks, and how he's done his career and the ups and downs that he's had. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump into this little B-roll still photo montage that I put together here of his vehicles and the insides of these vehicles so you guys can check it out, and then we'll get right to the interview. All right? Please do me a favor, head back, check out some of the past episodes and interviews if you're just tuning in and you haven't heard them yet, or if you have heard them, go back, pick up some nuggets of wisdom if you are curious about what goes on behind the scenes of the music and film industry. These folks have shared their lives and their stories with us, and I couldn't be more proud of what we've accomplished. All right, So you guys be cool. Have a great summer. Keep checking back. Here we go. Mr. Steve Remote. So, Steve Remote, man, I don't know where exactly we are, which I guess is the point of being inside these mobile recording studios, is that you could be anywhere doing this stuff. And so first I want to say thank you for having me aboard, having us aboard. My buddy John Romeo's here, he's filming us. And this is super cool. This is Elroy.
Yep, this is Elroy.
Spaceship Elroy.
We're on board Elroy, and it could be anywhere. And the only way you would know where you are if you were looking out the back door with that big ass glass view of the world.
That's the only way you'd know.
The only way you know.
You designed that glass door, didn't you?
Yeah, took about 3-4 years to design and create the various lights of glass, with each layer having a particular type of technology.
Yeah.
So it could be private, you can tint it, a lot of different things can go on with that. And the idea was to be able to have a situation where somebody can be on board this truck and have the comfort of opening it up, looking out the back door, which might be pointing at their backyard of their house, and they can see their kids playing in the backyard, or it could be the Grand Canyon and you want that visual while you're about to do an acoustic guitar overdub, or whatever it might be.
Because that's it, right? There's no other windows and there's no portals to the outside world.
Right. Based on that concept, the new little van that we have, the Ford Transit, has multiple glass windows, which will eventually have that same technology. But that was the whole idea, be able to be in a situation where you're in a control room and that glass actually is the studio glass to where the band or acts might be performing.
Yeah.
And so we could pull into a big sound stage and literally, just like a control room in a big studio complex, look right out the window if you didn't want to set up a video camera and monitor, which is kind of a cool thing. I've always dreamed about that. And Cosmo, which maybe one day we'll finish building.
Cosmo's another truck.
Yeah, that's the guy next door.
Yeah.
They're going to have vertical, really maybe about 8 inches wide of glass panels, maybe 4 feet tall, 8 inches wide, that are going to be strips of glass on either side in strategic points in the control room where a producer, engineer, or client may be chilling, either standing or sitting. That can then turn to the left or right and look outside, but then not be this massive pane window kind of thing.
Right.
So you still can see outside what the outside world is about, but at the same time, also have your, studio vibe. And
nice.
That's the beauty of actually being, this place we're in that surrounds this truck is there's no windows. We boarded it all up because at 5 a.m, I don't want to know it's 5 a.m.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's what happened to us literally the other day. It was pretty amazing. We got here pretty late, 9 o'clock. We're working, and I'm thinking, oh man, it's at 12 o'clock. My next door neighbor sees the door open, comes in. Go, man, what are you doing? And we're talking and this, that, and the other, and then realize it's 5 a.m. And I didn't realize it was 5 a.m. until I walked outside, and I go, man, almost put in an 8-hour day, and it felt like 4 hours. And it would have never happened if we had the windows.
But it also happens that way because you love what you do, right?
Well, of course, yeah.
I mean, that's when you find the thing,
And
5 hours seems like 5 minutes, and if you haven't
doubt.
gotten it right by the 5th hour, you're still going another 5. So wait,
That's true.
let's back it up a little bit. So AURASONIC, you launched in 1977.
Yes.
You
yes.
were 18?
Yep. Pretty young kid.
Yeah.
All from this dream out of high school, kind of like doodling, building little trucks on my, instead of paying attention to schoolwork.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here doodling about a truck.
So the whole idea, the whole premise of this for you has always been predicated on a mobile
absolutely.
audio.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the mission.
No, absolutely.
Why? Why not be in a studio? Or
Man,
live sound?
it's a cross between two things. Some really remarkable live albums like Aaron Barron did, with Allman Brothers Live and stuff, and just, even that Jay Giles Full House record kind of blew me away. I remember seeing Jay Giles at the Schaefer Music Festival in Central Park, Schaefer Beer, and then getting that record and saying, holy shit, it sounds exactly like that live show.
Yeah.
And that was the whole premise. But believe it or not, it actually went back so much earlier to around the time I was 11 years old. I was a really big Mission Impossible fan. I mean, when it came off Me TV, it's not on there anymore. I was like really jonesing for it because I used to love watching that show at 2 o'clock in the morning when it came on.
Just gadgets and...
No, moreover, actually wanting to be Barney. He was in the truck. Like,
right.
Those, panel trucks, which I affectionately call breadmobiles, right? Those little bread trucks with, all these gadgets. And I was always fascinated with that and said, wow, man, I would love to be doing, that's the gig I want to be doing,
Yeah.
Like, that's the coolest shit.
Right.
And so, that always stayed in my mind. And then, 6-7 years later, high school, senior, I wanted to, I took a internship at Sear Sound, Walter Sears' place. And because I knew for a fact that that's what I wanted to do. And the interesting thing is my high school was one of 5 high schools, one out of each borough of New York City, that had the first electronic music lab created.
Wow.
That was, I think, 1974, 75, something like that.
Yeah.
And so, man, the minute that happened, I pretty much cut all my classes and hung out in the electronic music lab. It was just completely what I wanted to do.
So who was 11, 12, 15, 17-year-old Steve? Where'd you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Queens.
Yeah.
Definitely a Flushing guy.
Yeah.
Flushing, New York.
What'd your folks do?
My mom worked in a dietary department at the hospital, and my dad was a barber.
Uh-huh.
Had his own shop and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
First generation. Where are they from?
My mom is from America, but Greek descent.
Okay.
So my dad's from the other side, as they say.
Yeah, the old country.
The old country. Came here and I guess in his 30s or something like that. And
small family, big family.
oh no, super small. The only kid.
Only kid.
Yeah.
Nice. And what'd they think of your musical aspirations?
Well, man, it's a really strange thing. I only found out that stuff many years later that they really love what I did. They were really tough group,
Yeah.
Never thought I would ever amount to anything, So I spent my whole life trying to prove that they were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
was it a lot of pressure to take get a more serious job?
Well, yeah, that was
and all
interesting. I remember my mom used to say that, like, basically, so of course this is now later on. So from 77 on, first 13 years of my career, I was in the red, right? And not necessarily because we weren't making money, but it was because I put every dime.
Yeah, you're building.
And back into the business and just kept building and building. And I had this problem. So I've designed 7 trucks and built 6.5 trucks, right? Because Cosmo's still being worked on. And so, but each truck along the way took 3-4 different revisions. Like I remember my first truck, I rebuilt that a number of times, 3-4 times before it was retired. So from 1977 to 84, that was redone a number of times. And you see some pictures that I have online showing the various versions of that vehicle. And so each truck really went into this metamorphosis of constantly improving it. So I remember, like I was saying, the first 13 years was like really rough, you know, in the red. Like I remember early 90s was the first, like, oh wow, man, I'm into black. I actually got some money left after I bought all sorts of stuff. You know?
Wow.
So, but I remember in that period of time, my mom said, well, why don't you get a job to hold you over? And I go, Mom, you know, like if I get a job, how in the world am I going to be able to put 100% into this?
Right.
I wouldn't be able to.
Right.
So, but interestingly, with this, determination and perseverance, literally, AURASONIC's the only gig I ever have done since I was 18 years old. So think about it. It's like we're a 41-year-old company now.
Yeah.
Never worked for anybody since I started AURASONIC. And interestingly, prior to that, worked at McDonald's. I was a deli boy, packed UPS trucks as a teenager.
Yeah.
All sorts of silly jobs.
Any actual musical aspirations? Did you play an instrument?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was into drums.
Yeah.
And then, interesting story. So you'll love this. So, as a kid, I want a set of drums. So my parents buy me a set of drums. And so I started playing them. And then they didn't like that they heard the sound of the drums. And they go, well, stop playing that racket, Yeah. I was like, well, you bought me. Yeah, we said it was okay for us to buy you a set, but we don't want you to play the friggin' thing, So it was the most absurd, if you knew my parents, it made sense,
Of course.
So yeah, you asked for the drums, we bought them, but we didn't expect you to play them, what's going on here?
Oh my God.
So I traded all that in for a bass. And of course, I couldn't play the bass through an amp. Right. So I remember being in bed, sleeping and doing this, putting my chin on the body.
So you can feel the vibration.
So I can feel the vibration. And then I got clever and moved the bed to one of the walls. So I had the headstock on the wall and my chin and I actually, wow, it sounded great. And that's how I was able to play.
That's hysterical.
And it was kind of tough, man.
Yeah.
It's like, it was weird. But interestingly, I quit playing bass, because I felt I was never good enough, even though a lot of my friends and family thought, I was really good at what I was doing. But, I didn't feel confident. There's so many amazing people like, Jaco Pastorius and Fernando Saunders and so many other amazing bass players, Chris Squire, all these are great bass players. Anything I do, I need to be amazing at it. And if I can't be amazing at it, I can't do it. You know, it's like, it's really odd. So I kind of quit that and started getting into the sound part of it, towards the end of high school. But interestingly, in the early 80s, I got back into playing bass again. I was producing a band, and we had to get rid of the bass player. And this was really funny. So producing this band, had to get rid of bass players, so we started auditioning all these bass players, right? So I was teaching everybody who came in for the audition, teaching them the part.
Yeah.
So what happened was, after, a few days of trying to audition, musicians and stuff, couldn't find a bass player. And then the lead singer and the drummer came up to me and she says, Steve, you're better than anybody that we audition. Why don't you join the band? And I said, I'm an engineer, producer now, I don't know, And then I said, what the fuck? If there was going to be any band, this would be great. And let me give it a shot. And so we did. And, we started playing around and, so many cool gigs that we did and stuff like that. There's actually even this insane story. We were asked to open up second to the last night of the Clash when they played at Bonds. And we remember they played that whole week at Bonds, right? Shit. So the second to last night, we were asked to play. And unfortunately, our amazing, I mean, this guitarist was so amazing, so unique the way he played. Unfortunately, he had a problem, a drug problem. And so he got lost on Rivington Street trying to get his fix on because he wanted to be stoned on the same stage with Mick, you know, from Insanity.
Right.
We all got there. By that time, we had a pretty big band. There was like 3 guitarists, bass, drums, you know, this lead singer. Man, we all got there. We got the call last minute. I'm coming from Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. We all get there. And the one guy who lives in freaking Manhattan, we're sitting there waiting and waiting. There were 3 opening acts and then the Clash, and we were the middle act. So I forget who the first one was. Then it was us, and then there was this band called The, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened was, man, you know, everybody loved the singer, and we were like, you know, they were holding as much as they could. So what was happening is each song was coming off the list of, all right, you still can go on, but like, you know, wait. And then it came to that point that, all right, well, you can't go on. And I'll never forget, I mean, you know, Bonds was a sold out show. And the guy comes on the mic and goes, sorry to say, you know, Disturbed Furniture will not be performing tonight. And the whole crowd went, oh, like it was, we had such a huge shot at making it. I felt that was it, man.
Wow.
And so then that happens. And then next thing you know, they're setting up for the, and guitarist shows up and he comes right up to my face and he goes, I got my gear, meaning his shit, and I'm ready to play. I go, dude, I said his name. I go, we ain't playing, man. You just didn't show up when you were supposed to. We're not playing tonight. And he goes, bing, like that on my nose. He goes, you're full of shit, and he walks away. And then he goes to the rest of the band, and then they heard the bad news, and as you can imagine, that was the end of that portion of him being in the band. And then, and so that was such a frustration that we had this like amazing shot because we opened up for so many really cool up and coming bands, and we kind of, I guess, 2 weeks prior to that, we played at Bonds, and I guess the people saw us and they said, "Wow, this is a really cool band, and let's give them a shot." And we had that shot, and each night there were 3 local bands that opened up, and to be part of that second to last night. You know,
it'd be huge. So when was that in relation to AURASONIC starting?
Well, keep in mind, AURASONIC started in '77.
Yeah.
And then that was, I guess, early '80s. Whenever that Bond, '81, was it '80? Yeah. There are some stuff that I put up about it because there's some really cool shit about it. So prior to all this, and we don't know what's happening, the lead singer, she goes to the Clash's dressing room and starts graffitiing all the walls. So our band name was Disturbed Furniture. So she would be writing all over it, Furniture Disturbed, you know, and put all sorts of shit all over there, thinking and knowing that, well, there's going to be photographs of them, and that's going to be in the background. So at least in history, there's a New York Times photograph, and you see the Clash hanging out, and you see Furniture Disturbed right in the back. And I'm like, okay, well, at least this substantiates our story, you know? Because they, you know, freshly painted that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember if we got in trouble or not.
That's hysterical, man.
But we you know, she graffitied that shit. And
was that pretty much the end for you at that point? That was the writing on the wall for you?
It was the writing on the wall. It took a couple of months later, and then the new guitarist came in, and we were butting heads then, and it was just, you know, this blue blood mindset is not cool, and so I had to move on, and I, you know, eventually the drummer and I quit and stuff like that. So it was kind of a drag because, you know, Giorgio was one of the most amazing guitarists I ever played with, meaning that I've never to this day seen a guy. he had a semi-hollow body electric Gretsch, and it with a Bigsby tailpiece. And what he would do is, while he's playing his chords, he'd be slightly putting them out of tune, pulling or lowering, and it was the most unique sound. I've never heard anybody play like that all the time, though. You know, like he's always leaning on it and playing that, like, that place.
Yeah, just in between there.
Yeah, and interestingly, that's how I, that's how I mix. Let me explain what I mean by that. So like, when I mix stuff, so whether it's adding delay, reverb, distortion, whatever it might be, I always go to the extreme to where it's ugly now.
Yeah.
And now it's like, sounds like shit. And then you just back it off slightly from that ugliness. Meaning, like that video I played you, the viola player had this most absurd multi-tap delay going that was, when you heard it by itself, and you go, that could never possibly work if it was up loud enough to actually hear it.
Yeah.
In the song, because it would tread into the next chords, and all this weird shit's going on, this weird syncopation happening. But when you just back it off just slightly from egregious, you get this, like, filler, this mayonnaise that's added, this little thing in between. So I do that with everything. So, like, for an example, like, let's say a horn part, I put this absurdly long reverb, but then back it off.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's in your face, but there's actually reverb.
Right.
But it's not, that hurt. You don't hear it, so that falling decay, you could only hear it on very sensitive headphones and certain stuff like that.
Wow.
And so same thing with distortions. Like, I would take an instrument and then let's say a drum strange thing happened. So that same project, we had two mics, and the drummer was so incredibly loud, and we were cutting the drums in this truck. And I had an M88. I always love having it's funny, sidebar on this, I love using vocal mics on drums for some crazy reason.
Okay.
So I had a M88 on the skin, and in the hole I had a Sennheiser 602 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so what was happening was, he was playing it, and so the drum kit moved, even though we had weights and all this shit. He still was constantly moving. So the skin was touching the M88, and it was the worst. When you solo it, it was the worst sound you could ever hear on a kick drum. Completely unusable. So we said, okay, we can't use it. We have to go with the 602 that's there. And so by mistake, the fader was up a little bit, and I was listening to it, and I go, holy shit, it sounds like a big marching band's kick drum sound when it was just slightly up in the mix. So then I said, let me take it to the full level. That mistake now became the sound of the kick drum. So I went back, EQ'd it to work the way I needed it to work, used that distortion, added compression, made it even worse, and then fed it just below the kick drum to add this big drum sound kind of thing. And so it's this amazing thing to take something to the point of ugliness and then just back it down just a hair, that magical thing that you close your eyes. And a lot of times we do that, man. We have no lights on, and just close your eyes, and what does it sound like? Like, oh, there it is. That's it.
Yep.
Save, and so that's sort of like what Giorgio was doing, going back to that original thing. He was so freaking unique that his guitar was out of tune a lot of the times, but somehow fit. Right. And he knew how to,
how far to push it.
So always dealt with his bullshit because he was so freaking unique.
Yeah.
But that was indeed the last straw for us.
So
he obviously couldn't.
Yeah. I mean, that makes it tough. So where did you start learning? You went to high school and you were playing. You're 18. You start Aurasonic. Did you then go on to? How did you learn this shit?
That's an amazing, great question, and this really needs to be addressed to everybody that wants to get into this, whatever age you are. So at the time, I knew, okay, so I'm 17. I'm like definitely into this thing. So I go, okay, Walter Sear thing was amazing. I met, John McLaughlin. I met all these like amazing people there and stuff. And so I said, man, I got to do this. So I went around to all the schools, all the audio classes, and, IAR and all this stuff. So out of all of them, I felt like IAR was the better one because it was teaching you also the math.
Mm-hmm.
And then back then in the late 70s, it was like, $3,000, $4,000 was the course. Now, it's like $60,000 for the freaking course, and they give you a badge. You get a badge and shit, So they didn't give us a badge back then. But so anyway, I'm sitting there and I go, man, I'm saying to myself, I go, wow, so no disrespect to the professors and any professor today. They got a, hard enough job, just with how things are. But man, I looked at it and I go, man, this is an engineer that couldn't make it as an engineer.
Right.
And now he's teaching, and his equipment's all old farty gear.
Yeah.
So I said, man, with that $3,000, what I did was I went out and bought a little Sony 8-channel mixer, a Revox A700 2-track recorder, Koss headphones. I mean, the cheapest, I think they were like $20 or some shit. The worst freaking headphones on earth. A Crown D60, power amp with a slew rate of about a week, That freaking thing was like the worst sounding whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then 8 microphones. And that's how I started. I cut my teeth. So now one of my high school girlfriends at the time turned me on to, she was really into the whole glam rock thing, right? So the New York Dolls were like her favorite band. So this is, 1975, 1976, man. Like, man, I gotta, impress my fucking girl and shit, So that weekend, Doll 76, I still have the button. There's actually a picture of me with Cherry Vanilla at the Max's Kansas City drink party, rock and roll drink party, and you see me wearing the Doll 76. So anyway, they're playing that weekend at Max's Kansas City. I remember I had a Oldsmobile Delta 88, and in the trunk I had my gear, like I said, the little mixer, Revox A700 wrapped in a blanket, 8 microphones, my amp, and a headset. And that was
17.
17 years old, and I pull up to Park Avenue South, and I walk in there without, I didn't pull any of my gear out. Walk upstairs, see Peter Crowley scratching around with this cassette machine, and I go to him, hey man, what's up? He goes, yeah man, we're gonna be recording like, New York Dolls here. I go, Peter, I have a whole like 8-channel mixer and 2-track recorder in my trunk. I can come here and record this freaking band, He goes, yeah man, come on, like do it. And, I brought in my gear, set up, and the rest is history, man. I like recorded so many bands with my 2-track recorder before they got into the whole 8-track and other shit, and then of course brought in the pros to do that.
Yeah. So what's it like? What was it like? 17 years old, 18 years old in 1977, New York.
I gotta say, true freedom. The reality that the city was so super corrupt and not ashamed of it.
Right.
So pretty much anything went. Anything went back then. But at the same time, what was created was this amazing scene, like really to be able to be part of that whole new wave punk scene at its early stages,
Right,
was
right.
just remarkable.
Not to
be-
mention the hip hop, right?
Yeah,
Seeing
yeah, yeah.
all
That was kind of coming in.
That
Yeah,
was coming in, and,
right,
and
right.
and disco and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. But out in the boroughs, you had hip hop and
Well,
had all
at the
thing going on.
time, we were really against that whole disco thing. That
Right.
was sort of,
Right.
but at the same time, I truly appreciated it because of the quality of the sound and how amazing
Right.
it was. But
Right.
but there was so many of us that really despised it. It was like
So you didn't go to school, you didn't go to college.
Well, yeah.
You started your own company and you bought this gear. That was your
Yeah,
college.
that was
And
my
your
that was my
parents must
school.
have shat
Oh,
themselves.
they were really it was like really
war.
screwed up.
Yeah.
So interestingly though, that's the whole thing. I wish more people understand it. Instead of thinking that somebody's got to teach you something, got to understand one thing: these schools only teach you to pass the test. That's it. You don't learn what it takes, like to sit there and be in a situation where you put a mic on a guitar amp and then realize, oh wow, if I move it back a bit, it's going to sound more like the guitar amp and stuff like that. Who's going to teach you that? No one. And you're never going to get that experience. And, I've always been a solutions-based guy. Some of the greatest things that's happened to me were because of mistakes. So mistakes are the most awesome things that could happen to anybody, because if you take that mistake and learn something and go to another level with it, you're now awesome. I tell something to my, I say this to all the interns that come work for me, and I say, look, you here at AURASONIC, you can make 1,000 mistakes. Just don't make the same ones twice. So theoretically, when you're up to that 700th mistake and you actually didn't make it a second time, you're now a freaking genius.
Right.
Because you've learned, genius with quotes, right?
Right.
It's sort of like, wow, man, you made that mistake, you learned from it, you figured out what fixed it, what made it better the next time around. And so now you're the expert.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And fessing up on your mistakes should be just as important and valuable as fessing up that you're so badass.
So, okay. So as an 18-year-old kid, and now fast forwarding that stuff to now, where did you start to learn those principles, right? Because I also read about you in an article about how when you have people come here, you sort of start them in a very particular place, and when they accomplish enough time in that place, then you move them up. Well, that's not a class system, and I can't even think about what the parallels I'm trying to draw. But in any assistant or apprenticeship program, that's how it's going to go. So where did you start to learn those types of principles and figure it out?
It's really hard to say, but if you ask people that know me, they say I haven't changed one bit. Now I would say this is something that has been developed over the years and honing in and getting it better, but I think it's always been there. I always, being an only kid and being really kind of left to myself,
Yeah.
I was always a dreamer. I always had these lofty ideas and things, and I realized if I make my dreams so incredibly unreachable, now you reach these other possibilities that are still great because the other ones are so huge.
Right.
So like, let me dream about going to Mars and I make it to the moon.
Right.
If I think of going to the moon, I'm going to be sitting nowhere, on the mountaintop somewhere.
Yeah.
But if I think about Mars, then I'm going to make it to the moon.
Yeah.
And having that concept has always been my case. And just being a dreamer and then living my dream. Strangely, I said to myself, well, what would I call myself? And, I call myself a map designer because this is one thing that's kind of interesting. So like, imagine being a guy that designs maps, meaning I figure out where all the roads are, where things are going to go. Probably less than half of them were traveled, but I still made these maps. So when I get there, I know exactly where I need to be because I've already calculated that. Parallel now this to every truck I've built. Like I mentioned earlier, designed 7 trucks, built 6.5, right? We, quarter, 1/3 into building Cosmo. In 2009, I know that sounds like an incredible amount of time. 9 years ago, the summer I started building that truck and designing it. I have a book about 3 inches thick with every drawing and everything. I signed off, and you should probably see this stuff and blow your mind. So that truck has been designed and stuff 9 years ago, had everything figured out of what I want to do, and it's sitting there. So that's the map. So okay, I take a year or 2 hiatus on building that truck, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When I'm ready to finish that, I go and pull that book out, open it up, and there's my things to do. Here are all the different designs, all this stuff that's going to happen.
Wow.
And so that's how I built everything. I have a book on every vehicle, and that's my map. So another thing that I do, so let's say I draw something out. So especially with Cosmo, draw it out, and then let a few days pass, a few months pass. Then without looking at that drawing I did previously, I go draw it out again. And then this next time around, what did I leave in? What did I add? What did I exclude? And then after I draw it, sign it, date it. Now go back to the book, look at the other drawing, put it next to each other. Oh, they're identical. Okay, so my idea is right. Oh, I left out this thing. Why did I leave that thing? Oh, wait, it's a better idea to leave that out. So I'm always constantly checking on myself.
Right.
And that's a great way to do it. Like, why? See, that's the other thing. I'm not ever, really can't ever consider myself a follower. Like, there's all sorts of amazing engineers and producers that I respect, but I never followed them. I deconstructed their mixes and got their sound, but I've never, was under anybody. Like, I never really kind of followed anybody to, oh, can you help me out? And always reinvented, always figured out my shit on my own.
Wow.
And then used what I did as the map for the next change, And some of these drawings, and you see they're months apart, all hand drawings. You put them next to almost identical, like you can put them up with the light and it line up exactly.
That's amazing.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So and I can show you this stuff, you'd be blown away by it.
Yeah, I'm also just curious too where the sort of confidence to keep going a lot of times too, because it's not like you're 35, right, and you're starting your first business and you've got all that experience, life experience. You're 18, 19, you're 24. Dude, your parents don't believe in you.
You said that. You said the magic number 35. I got this most insane story to tell you. Okay, so I'm in my 60s now. When I was 53, I used to tell the story because it was the only time I can tell the story. So I go back. I said, yeah, I was 18 when I started my business, and in my mind, I said, wow, by the time I'm 35, I'm going to retire the audio side of things, and I want to get into directing movies and videos and all that kind of stuff. And I go, man, I didn't realize I was dyslexic. It wasn't 35, it was 53. And because that's when about 7 years ago, I finally caught up, like I said, about that map. The thing was designed, 18, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I thought it would take me the 35 to up to 35 to be where I am right now.
Yeah.
I was off by a gazillion years, and it was 53 when my 7 years of playing around with the video side of things.
Right.
And so, but it's still that same cost. It just took me a little longer to get there.
Because you didn't feel ready?
No, because it just took longer. It wasn't about that. It never is. It's like never about whether I'm ready or not. If I feel like I need to, take a little bit longer, I just do it because I'm not a CPA.
Right.
That's the thing. I'm the worst businessman in the world because it's never about the bread. So, like with everything I do, I'm mixing, I don't stop tweaking until like, they turn off the power. It's like it takes me forever to sometimes get stuff done, or sometimes the first take is amazing. Oh, we're done.
Yeah.
It's feeling that confidence that it is amazing.
Right.
And once I reach that amazing thing, which could be from a mistake or it could be from this calculated plan, that's kind of where I base it on.
Yeah.
And so many things, I mean, countless stuff that has been generated from the wrong turn, the wrong move, it's just, and then saying, well, wait a minute, instead of sitting there lamenting on that or complaining about it,
right?
Well, what's the good out of that? What are we going to get out of this to get it better?
Right.
And sometimes that takes you off a year or two or a few months or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
But so I'll give you an example. The band called Fuse, great story, man. These guys are absolutely amazing. I just got out of working with a 3-piece band that needed everything now, and they weren't ready for anything. I had a course for them. They didn't like that it was taking all this time. And the lead singer, at the time, they were so unique, man. They were so amazing because of the fact that the lead singer looked like an anime character from Japan.
Uh-huh.
And, they each had this different look, and it was a 3-piece, and they sounded amazing, and they had this edgy vibe to them. And I said, wow, these guys are going to be huge. And I knew for a fact that I can make them the biggest thing that they could ever be. And I had this great concept of being the perfect opening act, because we had the whole thing rigged that everything was an input. I even got the drummer to play with an electronic drum set. So the only thing live on stage was the 2 vocal mics. And so our sound checks, no one ever heard, and we literally needed 10 minutes. 5 minutes to set everything up, and 5 minutes to run one of the tracks, because we had a playback with the click in one ear and then all the keyboard parts in another ear. So it was amazing. I remember the first time we ever played, I was like kind of blown away, because it started off that the idea was that the left and right, everything's all pre-mixed. We were rehearsing in this truck. So the idea is we had everything right. Everybody had their own like headphone mix and in-ears and stuff. So everybody had it perfect. And everywhere we played was always perfect for them.
Yep.
So now the left and right, now think about it, when you play a CD or MP3 on a system, it's always going to sound exactly like that.
Yeah.
So that was the concept, that we can show up, because there's no sound on stage, we can show up, and then that left and right out was going to be amazing anywhere we were.
Yep.
Now all we need is 2 inputs on the console.
Right.
So I'd have my rig, and early stages we had also a little splitter. So the 8 mics, because there was 8 inputs, trying to keep it as small as possible. So the 8 inputs also showed up on the desk. So in the event my mix failed, or it sounded like crap, that the sound guy can add shit to it or whatever he wanted to do. And I remember we were playing Santos Party House for the first time, and I'm listening to it, and they're playing it, and I'll go, this is pretty fucking amazing. I turn around to the sound guy, because I was set up in front of him, and I go, dude, do you have the other faders up? He goes, no, man, that's just your left and right. Because I told him, I said, look, pan this left and right, no EQ, faders exactly the same, leave it, and only bring shit up if you need it. Turn around, he goes, no, man, that's all it is. I go, holy shit, this is it, and we were done. So what happened was, I knew, they were telling me, especially the lead singer, oh man, I want to be touring by the summer. I go, but we got nothing to sell. We still got to get the record done. You go on tour to sell your swag,
Right.
I go, look, man, I'll get you on tour. I'll get this shit happening. I need you to be amazing, like that amazing thing, right? You got to be amazing. You got one shot of making a first impression. Why shouldn't it be amazing? When I went to go see another band, and they opened up for the other band, I was blown away I never stayed for the other band. I was like, done. Okay, this is it. There's nothing to top this band.
Right.
And so that's how I think about things. That's how I do it. And they just weren't digging it.
Yeah.
And he said one crazy thing to me. He said, well, I want to be touring before I'm 30. I go, that's the wrong reason to be touring, bro. That's not the reason to be touring.
Yeah.
You want to tour so you can sell your product. You want to tour to find the right tour to open up for the right act. So I thought I was developing the most perfect band for an opener. Imagine like thinking, somebody like, Night Bob or somebody and go like, yeah, man, I got this like opening act, man. We need 10 minutes to set up. That's it. That's including our sound check, and you're never going to hear the sound check.
Right.
Like, is that cool? Can you get me on the band, on the thing?
Right.
Like, who's going to not say, yeah, man, come on board?
Right.
It's not like, oh, I got to bring my sidecar this, and I need 50 faders and 10 monitor mixes. Dude, we're all self-contained. We just show up, do our things. I was convinced. I told him, I said, man, give me a year, but you got to promise me one thing. Get the damn everything about the band off the internet. Let's reinvent you. You constantly keep putting up this shit and you get 2 likes and it's your mom and your dad liking your shit.
Right.
It's like, let's get rid of that. Let's reinvent ourselves. Come blasting. Just never done it. They came in and basically said, oh, we want to take a hiatus. This is now leading up to the most amazing thing. We need a hiatus of a couple of weeks, and this, that, and the other, right? So I knew, all right, so they're quitting. They're not digging the fact that I'm, need to put them on this course.
Yeah.
That time is your friend. It's not your enemy.
Right.
Like if you use it wisely, you will win. You will always win. And this truck is a proof of that and everything else I've done. And so they quit. So the crazy thing is after they leave, I knew they were, the 2 weeks hiatus to figure out what they wanted to do. Now, a couple of months later, now this is October 2014, this band emails me and goes, oh, we heard you were the right guy for us, and we want to do this audio video capture and this, that, and the other. So I said, okay, come on down and meet me. So now most of the guys in the band, they were here. And we're talking, and so like I'm on the fence because I don't necessarily like working on hip hop stuff because it's not. I don't think I can bring the best at what they're doing. But then I realized that's just one element of the band. They're this classic rock, soul rock, R&B, hip hop, all these different elements was so amazing. And then I saw some of their videos that they did on their own, and we started talking, and I'm like starting to really dig these guys, because their messages, like this amazing positive messages, unheard of.
Nice.
Not talking about themselves, they're talking about you.
Right.
And about togetherness and all this like shit, like oh, I'm back in the '60s again. Man.
Right.
This is killer.
Yeah.
So the magical thing that got me like, signed in. It's October 2014. I go, so when do you want to do this thing? I'm thinking, I go, what, like November, December? They go, no, next year. I go, next year? Like, why would you want to do it next year? They go, because we want to be ready for you. I was like, wait a minute. There's like 6 core people in the band when we did the shows, 12 people on stage.
Wow.
And they want to take their time and get their shit together. I just got a 3-piece band that needed it yesterday.
Yeah.
And now I meet a guy, we'll do it next year. So what happened was we had it planned to rehearse 9 months or so without me. And then I came in on the 11th, 12th month. So almost to the day, October 2015, we booked the club, recorded 2 nights, recorded 4 hours of material, of which we picked 15 tunes to mix for the CD and singles, and then of which 10 were cut to picture. So they're going to be 10 individual videos, plus they were going to be in this music doc that I directed. So, my big debut of director, producer, and, the other duties that I normally do. And we came in turnkey situation, all this, audio, video, sound, lights, all turnkey by AURASONIC. And what was so remarkable about the relationship is pretty much all the ideas I came up with, they went with. They were like completely into it. And there were a few that, they thought it would be a better way to go another direction. And I'm a kind of guy is like I always say, I'd rather go with the better idea than my idea any day, because it's just better, right? So why not better? Why does it have egos ever have to be in the way of anything? Like, nothing wrong if it's an amazing idea. Let's go with that idea. And they had some really clever things that ended up being part of the project because of them.
Who's the band? Can you say who it is?
I think I did. The band that is called Fuse.
Band called Fuse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back a few months prior to the gig, we started a successful Kickstarter program, and it was amazing. They asked, they did 3 Kickstarters, all were successful, and each one they doubled the money.
Wow.
So the third one, they doubled the money to do this big, amazing thing. And we not only met that goal, we exceeded it by 20%. So it was kind of cool. So, the majority of the funds to produce this thing was by their fans.
That's very cool.
So we took like that. So that was like October. We started listening and picking the tunes and stuff like that. All of the rest of 2015, and then 2016 spent time mixing and editing all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So by the time we got everything kind of done, we're here. We're in mastering stage now, and
right.
The thing just sounds and looks great. And besides making this material available to the people that put money in for their Kickstarter, we're also trying to get a network deal with it, and we're looking at people like Netflix and others to see if they would take this on as a show.
So you're looking to grow your operation, AURASONIC, and what it does, into a sort of a more back end thing as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Always kind of been doing that back end thing for up and coming artists. It's sort of like my day job is working with major acts, and my my side thing is helping bands.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's never been about the bread for me. So
right.
It didn't really matter if we got some amazing stuff. That's what's really key.
It's got to be tough though, because I was younger once, and I know how ambitious I can be, and you were the same way, right? If someone told you to be patient when you were 18, 19, 20, you tell them to fuck off. Right? So it's got to be tough, I imagine.
Interestingly,
to try to get somebody to,
Interestingly, I don't know about that, in the sense that I always spent the time reflecting later on. Like at the time, I'd be making a million mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But then I'd go back. I got to say, I always sit there and say, well, I might have. That guy might have had a point. She might have had a point. He might have had a point.
Right.
It's like, and then you go and reevaluate that and say, well, wait a minute. Let me put myself in their shoes and look at me. That's the thing. I think early on I figured that out. I think in my mid-20s,
mm-hmm.
of being able to pull myself out from where I am and put myself where you are, and then look at me while I'm talking, sort of like this out-of-body thing. Like, okay, what am I doing? What's going on? Like, okay, I was some other guy just looking at, is this guy nuts, or is this guy a good nuts or a bad nuts?
Right. Well, certainly, being a human would be the right reason to do it, but being a business owner or whatnot, that's, you have to self-reflect, right? You gotta have a level of self-awareness to help get yourself forward, which kind of, I hate to keep sort of driving back to this, but in that time, in that first 13 years that you were mentioning before, how did you keep going?
Oh, I had no other choice.
Yeah.
I'm driven.
You just know, right?
No, I mean, but it's really goes back to that map.
Yeah.
I'm just following the course. I know that, it's okay. So when you put so much time into getting the details right ahead of time, all that pre-production is, in my opinion, 90% of it all.
Yeah.
Because if I'm there to do the pre-production, then I go and capture the origination. The origination is a no-brainer.
Right.
Because then now, the only things you got to worry about is the snafu stuff that happens at the moment. My whole concept has always been creating this map, so that now you're following it. So if you put all your efforts in the pre-production of any idea, whether it is that barbecue that you're going to do with your buddies, or the mixing of a record, or the origination of a capture, whatever it might be, if you put in a massive amount of time and effort into getting that right, then you never will have that issue of that mistake that you created because you didn't think it out. You'll only be dealing with all that snafu stuff that happens in life,
Yep.
So for an example, months of prepping with the band called Fuse, we got pages and pages of notes and figure shit out. We show up, we capture the event. That was the easy part, right? So that's really kind of where it's at, of putting all your efforts in that detail and getting that absolutely on point. So then everything else is sort of like motor movement at that point. You're just following the course. Now everybody gets a copy of my location file and all our notes and this, that, and the other. Everything, every gig. I guess the one that really made me, I have, if you, one day maybe you come by, you'll see in my conference room, we have pretty much, I would say 80% of every gig I ever did, hard copy of it in lawyer binders sitting on a shelf from, I couldn't get it back to 77 because I was still kind of inventing myself. But it was, I guess, was it 79 or 81 was kind of like the start of it, when I got a chance to work with Frank Zappa and do that famous last performance at Palladium. We were the TV audio track for that. Wow. And seeing all that information and Mark Shubin put together and all these block diagrams of all the 6 trucks that were involved and all this, I said, man, this is clearly what I want to do. And so then I went back and looked all for my old notes and kind of, went back as far as I could, I think to 79 of notes that I had. And then from that point on, really developed the notes. And so now we have this awesome notes that are hard copy that has a database that you look up the database and you can find out where it might be, so you can get the hard copy, where the masters go, what happened, what are your favorite restaurants even, and what mics and what pre's and all this. We call it a location file, but back in the day, it was called a production file or production location file, something like that. Yeah. But anyway, a long story short,
like a diary, basically.
Yeah, it's definitely a diary of every gig. So now the thing about this, and this is what's so important. So whether we're doing a network gig or it's a local gospel recording, everybody gets the same treatment. It's always the same thing. Like, we just did this thing for AMC Network with Hank Azaria.
Yeah.
Amazing talk at AMC, and small gig, didn't need to write anything down, still showed up with 5 pages of notes. Like, we're talking about the smallest system.
Sure.
That you definitely don't need any notes, and I showed up with 5 pages of notes. You know what I mean? So, you're talking about in the spectrum. That's, I'm leading edge on that, man.
If you, so, all right. So let's start bringing it home on some of this. So let's talk about the map now. What's the map starting to look like now.
Well, but it's the same map. See, that's the amazing thing about this. It's the same map. The course is still the same course. Finishing up some tweaking on this truck.
Yeah.
Finishing the build out on that. Moving on to new horizons that will bring up later on.
Yep.
Perhaps in August.
Yep.
I have some announcements to make, but the key is to really follow this goal where, taking the tiny big mobile to a whole other level. That is a kind of a unique thing. So interestingly, we're talking about these maps and all this notes and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Well, most of these trucks have taken me years to build. I mean, insane, like a decade or whatever to build.
Right.
So in 2015, I said to myself, look, man, I got to build this truck and not, be like doing it the way I normally do, because it
Right.
still wouldn't be built yet, right? In my
Right.
normal. So I had this like concept that I would draw these little drawings, and right from that went right to the saw. Like there
Right.
was none of this other crap that I normally do.
Yeah.
So that truck was literally built in a year,
Wow.
which is unheard of.
Yeah.
So by almost a year to the month, we had that truck up and running, and I was really hoping to try to get it done in 6 months, but we had some complications with some of the workflow mindset, and so it took us almost double the time. But it took me a year to build, where that's unheard of. Like
Right,
it
right.
would take me years just to figure it all out.
Yeah, yep.
So I didn't want to do that. It was like napkin to, boom, get
Yeah.
it done. So 2006 to now, this summer will be 2 years now that it's on the road. It would be unheard of. Normally we'd still be building it.
Still tinkering. Yeah.
So I still got major things to do that truck, and when I say major, is that sliding door on the side and the two back doors have to be finished up with the teak work and the stuff.
Yeah.
Have a really killer idea how I'm going to address that, because it's sliding door mechanism and have this huge wood structure here
Right.
hanging off of it is not an easy
I
task.
keep forgetting we're in a truck. by
Yeah,
the
no, it's kind of crazy, right?
way. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah, and same thing with that little van. The fact of the matter that it's this van, and last year we parked it at Newport Folk, and we were asked to capture all the stages. So we had
into one van.
well, this is an interesting thing. We had 5 different locations set up. We had a portable rig at each stage. So we had one at the Fort stage, one at the Harbor stage, one at the Quad stage. And then I had a guy there capturing that stuff for each stage. Then we did what we call sneaker net, grab the hard drive and race over to Casemate, was where the run to Casemate, where we had the central control center set up, and I had feeds coming from all the stages going to that place, and then from there we would be feeding NPR, we'd be feeding TuneIn,
Wow.
and then the bands that needed there were 15 bands out of the nearly 60 bands we were recording that needed a remix, so they would be put on NPR Music's archives. So we had the Tiny Big Mobile parked behind the Harbor stage, set up for remixing. So what would happen is the ones that we got signed off for remix, we go in there and we start, remixing, getting that all tightened up. Then send it out to the bands. They get approval. Most of them approved it right away. I think it was only one band that the John Prine, with Roger Waters playing. He needed some adjustments happening with his guitar and vocal, and that was pretty much the only critique we got. There might have been a couple others, but
Right.
to sit there and mix 14 out of the 15 bands and get like just one critique, and everything else was like, oh yeah, this is it. Now you go to NPR Music's archive and listen to the Newport 2017 stuff that was all mixed out of that little tiny truck.
That's awesome.
And you know, and it's all about the origination. If you spend all that time with, like I said, about that preparation, getting things done right so it's captured properly, then the mix now becomes you know, not a fixing section. I hate that fix it in the mix mindset. I wish we can go back to corporal punishment and just carry a bat, goddammit, and just whack the fucking dude or dudette, you know? It's like, you know, what do you mean fix it in the mix? You're here now.
Right.
Like that 3 minutes is going to take to move the mic 1/4 of an inch that will make a massive difference, perhaps, than the tens of hours you're going to now spend fixing every song.
Yeah. If you could give some advice, words of wisdom, words of experience to the 18-year-old Steve Remote who is launching AURASONIC, what would it be?
Man, don't listen to anybody else but your own heart. You know? But take what you hear from others with a grain of salt. Evaluate it. You know, instead of like, you know, like maybe put more, you know, more time into coming up with the idea, coming up with multiple versions of that idea, then present it to people you really trust. Also present it to people you don't trust. Those answers sometimes are more important. So you bring a guy you know, or a gal that you know is corrupt, gonna stab you in the back, blah, blah, blah. Address it to them. What are they gonna tell you? Shortly, that information is invaluable. Just as important as it is to people that you trust and you love and you admire.
Right.
So, but I think one thing most people don't get is your first impressions are always absolutely on the ball. When you first meet somebody, you know whether it's, you know, if that's a friendly or a foe. You just know. It's this a bit. I don't know. But I think we all have this. I don't think it's unique to just me. But when I see how like relationships grow and you see how they end up, and then you go back, rewind to the first time you met them, I go, that's the feeling I'm feeling now is exactly how I felt at the beginning. So, you know, take more, you know, time into really evaluating your surroundings and listening to
Trusting
your own
your
heart.
right?
Your instincts are, I would say, 10 out of 10 is correct. And what do? We have our instincts, and then we spend a lifetime saying, oh, no, I'll give them a chance, you know? You know, well, wait a minute. Maybe not. Maybe, you know, maybe you got to kind of step back a little bit and, you know, you give people a chance, right? You know, anything.
Right.
But, you know, you maybe put them on a B list.
Right.
Or a C list. You know, make them your A guy when you're not feeling comfortable at it, no matter how cool they come off, how cool they act, you know? So that's kind of an important thing. And then the other thing is, you know, pre-planning, you know, just, you know, daydream. You know, these things are not, you know, not a bad thing. And strangely enough, this is probably the most important thing, and I'm probably the king of it. Procrastination, man, is not a bad word.
Right.
Man, you know, if we can blow it off today and not get it done and wait for tomorrow, now you got one more day to think it out. Now, story of my life, why it takes me decades to finish anything. But, you know, but there is some magic to that about actually procrastination gives you that out to figure out another way. And then the next day, there's no other way. No, when that really does work, then get it done, damn it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But, you know, it's not a bad word. Oh, you're procrastinating. Well, wait a minute. I'm also daydreaming. I'm also trying to figure this out. There might be some other solutions, you know? You know, or, hey, I'm really lazy and I need to chill.
Right.
You know, there's sometimes, that is not a bad thing.
Right. Sometimes you don't always have to be plugged in.
No.
Right?
No. Because then when you look at it that way and embrace that, so then when you do need to be on the ball, you're on the ball.
Yeah.
You know, and that seems to happen. Like, another thing that I'm fortunate enough that because of so much pre-planning and so much dedication to creating solutions for problems, you know, sort of like instead of fixing the blame, you fix the problem, right?
Right.
How many people we know, their exit strategy is always an excuse. It's always somebody else. And it's like, how about, no, that's fixing the blame, right? Oh, you.
Right.
You know, no. Let's fix the problem. Who cares who the blame is?
Right.
So put the blame on me. I'll take the blame. If I'm in charge, my guy screws up, it's on me. It's still on me. So now what do I do?
Yeah. You know
I got to figure it out.
You know who Dave Natal is?
Oh, he's amazing.
Right.
Yeah,
He's awesome. So
yeah,
he was
really.
on a few weeks ago. And he said that. He talks about that. He doesn't care who screwed it up. He goes right to who's ever in charge and he takes the blame.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Partly because it diffuses the situation immediately.
Yeah.
And partly because what else, now you can get on with fixing.
No, absolutely. I think that's key, an important way to approach it, because we have so many kids growing up today that just need that out all the time.
Right.
They need to escape somehow.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, embrace that mistake.
Yeah.
You know, I value the guy who drops one of my Neumann mics and then fesses up on it. Like my buddy just the other day drops a freaking rack mount mixer immediately. Oh man, let's test it, figure it out. He didn't hide it under the rug, so then now we're on a gig and then the mic don't work and I don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
I put so much more love and respect in that guy for doing that than a guy that doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like the mistake gets more value than anything else for me when you fess up to it.
I love the idea of the maps, and I'm definitely anxious to hear in August, September what's going on. Definitely want to circle back with you.
Awesome.
And these trucks are awesome. People can find you at AURASONICLTD.com.
Yep.
Is that the website?
Yep. And on Facebook, I don't have a Aurasonic page because if I did, it had to be awesome. Right. And I'm not ready for awesome yet.
You're still planning that one out.
Right. I'm still.
For crack. Give it
you're
another
just
day.
finding the right person to be the curator for it.
Yeah, just give it another day. Procrastinate on
Or a year.
Daydream or a year. Think about how it's going to go.
But you can look up Steve Remote on Facebook, and I have a lot of public photo albums. That's a really awesome way to find out about Aurasonic because I keep that up to date. And interestingly, any of the titles in the photo albums that have an asterisk that start are usually about me and my company or my trucks.
Nice.
So there are other really cool stuff there too, but that's more of just me, just putting out stuff. But there's so much cool, like each album is each truck and portable gear and all sorts. There's a lot of really cool stuff.
Your site's got a lot of cool stuff on it. And I remember when I found it like a year ago or something, I was like, I got to have this guy on the show.
Awesome.
I mean, these things being these trucks and these mobile audio units and whatnot. Video
and
units.
Audio video. You really.
Right, audio video, absolutely. Because this one can do green screen, right? Did you do green screen
sure.
here? Very cool, man.
Yeah,
Steve.
No. Oh, my pleasure.
100th guest.
Yeah.
Dude,
awesome.
Thank you very much.
My
I
pleasure,
appreciate
man.
it. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being with us. 100 episodes. We'll see you back on Labor Day.
Sweet.
Will be the next one. Well, we'll be dropping some stuff. I want to thank my buddy John Romeo behind the camera, Paloma Criollo for getting me this far, and for all of you guys out there for tuning in week after week. I really appreciate it. Hit all those links in the description below, and follow us here on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, all those things, and head over to roadiefreeradio.com. I want to hear from you. That's info@roadiefreeradio.com. And in the meantime, you guys be safe out there. No roadies, no rock and roll.